The conference room fell silent as Maya Chen walked in. 20 pairs of eyes followed her movements, most of them belonging to men twice her age who had spent decades in intelligence work. She could feel their skepticism like a weight pressing against her chest. At 28, she was the youngest person ever selected for Operation Nightfall. And nobody was letting her forget it. Director Harrison sat at the head of the table, his gray beard neatly trimmed and his expression unreadable. He gestured toward an empty chair near the back of the room. Maya noticed it immediately. The junior position, the spot reserved for observers and note-takers. She walked past it without hesitation and took a seat in the middle of the table. Directly across from Harrison, a few officers exchanged glances. One of them, a stocky man named Roberts with military medals covering his chest, let out a quiet scoff. Maya ignored it. She had learned long ago that reacting to disrespect only confirmed what they already believed about her. Harrison cleared his throat and activated the projector. A photograph appeared on the screen showing a man in his 50s with sharp features and cold eyes. Viktor Volkov. The name alone made experienced agents shift uncomfortably in their seats. Volkov was not just another criminal. He was a ghost who had evaded capture for 15 years, responsible for smuggling operations that spanned 3 continents. His network moved everything from weapons to classified documents, and he had informants buried deep within multiple government agencies. 3 operations to capture him had failed. 2 agents had died trying. Harrison explained the situation in his measured tone. Intelligence suggested Volkov would be attending a private auction in Prague in 3 weeks. It was a rare opportunity, perhaps their last chance to capture him. The mission required someone who could blend into high society, speak multiple languages fluently, and think quickly under pressure. Roberts leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. With all due respect, Director, this operation needs seasoned experience. We're talking about Volkov here, not some street-level dealer. Other heads nodded in agreement. Maya felt their doubt like static electricity in the air. Harrison's eyes swept across the room before landing on Maya. Agent Chen has been selected as the primary operative. For this mission, the room erupted. Not with shouts, but with the kind of controlled disagreement that came from people trained to maintain composure. Robert spoke first, his voice tight with barely concealed frustration. She has 4 years of field experience. For years. Volkov has been doing this longer than she's been alive. Another officer, a woman named Patterson, who ran the Eastern European desk, added her concerns. The auction will be attended by some of the most dangerous people in the criminal underworld. One wrong move, one moment of hesitation, and we lose everything. Or worse. Maya remained silent, watching Harrison. She knew he was testing her as much as he was testing the room. This was not just about the mission. It was about whether she would defend herself or let others speak for her. Harrison held up a hand, and the room quieted. Agent Chen scored highest in tactical assessment, languages, and adaptive thinking. She speaks fluent Czech, Russian, and Mandarin. She completed the advanced surveillance course in record time and has successfully closed 8 operations without a single blown cover. Robert shook his head. Test scores don't mean anything when bullets start flying. Maya finally spoke, her voice calm and steady. You're right. They don't. But neither does age or years sitting behind a desk. The room went cold. Robert's face flushed red, and several officers looked offended. Maya continued before anyone could interrupt. I've read the files on all 3 previous attempts to capture Volkov. Operation Granite failed because the lead agent tried to use intimidation tactics at a negotiation. Volkov saw through it immediately. Operation Silverfish fell apart when the operative couldn't adapt after their cover story was questioned. They panicked and ran. Operation Black Dawn never even got close because the team was too large, too obvious, too traditional. She looked directly at Roberts. Volkov expects experienced agents. He expects military precision and standard intelligence protocols. That's exactly why he keeps winning. He knows how you think because he's been studying people like you for 15 years. Patterson leaned forward, her interest clearly piqued despite her earlier concerns. And you think being young and inexperienced is an advantage? Maya shook her head. I think being underestimated is an advantage. Volkov won't see me as a threat. None of his people will. They'll see a young woman at a fancy party. She's probably there as someone's companion. Definitely not important enough to worry about. That gives me room to move, to listen, to get close in ways a traditional agent never could. Harrison watched the exchange with something that might have been approval in his eyes. He had chosen Maya for exactly this reason, but he needed his team to understand the logic. Buy-in from the senior staff would be crucial for mission support. Roberts was not convinced. And when things go wrong? When you're face-to-face with Volkov and his security team? What then? Maya met his gaze without flinching. Then I do what I was trained to do. I adapt, I survive, and I complete the mission. The meeting continued for another hour as they reviewed operational details, contingency plans, and support protocols. Maya answered every question with precision, demonstrating knowledge of Czech geography, criminal auction procedures, and Volkov's known associates. Slowly, reluctantly, some of the skepticism in the room began to shift, but not completely. As the meeting adjourned, Maya overheard Robert speaking quietly to Patterson near the door. This is a mistake. Harrison is letting politics influence operational decisions. When this goes bad, and it will go bad, it's on him. Patterson's response was softer, harder to hear. Maybe, but I've seen her personnel file, the classified parts. There's more to her than test scores. Maya pretended not to notice the conversation as she gathered her materials. She had expected doubt. She had prepared for resistance. What she had not fully anticipated was how heavy it would feel, carrying the weight of everyone's low expectations on her shoulders. That evening, Maya sat alone in her apartment, reviewing files on Volkov for the 100th time. Her walls were covered with photographs, maps, and timeline charts. She had been studying this man for 6 months, long before she knew she would be assigned to his case. Volkov was meticulous and paranoid. He changed locations constantly, used encrypted communications, and trusted almost no one. His few close associates had been with him for years, loyal through a combination of profit and fear. Getting close to him would require more than just good cover. It would require becoming someone he wanted close to him. Maya's phone buzzed with a message from Harrison. Final briefing tomorrow, 0800. Prepare for enhanced interrogation scenario training. She smiled grimly. Enhanced interrogation scenario training was a polite term for simulated torture resistance. Harrison was making sure she was ready for the worst possible outcomes. The fact that he thought she might need it, told Maya, is exactly how dangerous this mission truly was. As she studied Volkov's photograph, Maya thought about all the people who had underestimated her throughout her life. Teachers who assumed she could not handle advanced courses, recruiters who questioned whether she was tough enough for intelligence work, fellow agents who saw her age and appearance and assumed she was there to fill a diversity quota rather than because she had earned her place. She had proven them wrong every single time. This would be no different. 3 weeks seemed like both too much time and not nearly enough. Maya threw herself into preparation with an intensity that bordered on obsession. She practiced her cover identity until it became second nature. She studied European art and culture so she could discuss auction items knowledgeably. She trained in close-quarters combat until her instructors had no critiques left to give. But preparation could only do so much. Eventually, she would be alone in Prague, surrounded by criminals, with Volkov somewhere in the crowd. No backup nearby. No safety net. Just her skills, her wits, and her ability to become someone else entirely. The night before her departure, Maya received an unexpected visitor. Roberts appeared at her apartment door, looking uncomfortable and slightly embarrassed. "I wanted to apologize," he said without preamble. "In the briefing room, I was out of line." Maya studied him carefully, trying to determine if this was genuine or politically motivated. "You were expressing legitimate concerns about the mission." "What?" Robert shook his head. "I was being a close-minded old fool who let his ego get in the way of good judgment." "Patterson showed me your full file, the classified parts. I understand now why Harrison chose you." Asa did not ask what was in those classified sections. She knew. The operation in Istanbul that had gone wrong. The kidnapping in Moscow where she had talked her way out using only psychology and patience. The undercover assignment in Hong Kong that lasted 9 months and resulted in the dismantling of an entire trafficking network. Roberts continued, I still think this mission is dangerous as hell. But if anyone can pull it off, maybe it's you. Just promise me something. What? Come back alive. Don't try to be a hero. If it goes bad, you get out. Volkov isn't worth dying for. Maya nodded slowly. I'll do my best. After Roberts left, Maya stood at her window looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow, she would board a plane to Prague. Tomorrow, she would become someone else. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. She thought about Robert's words. Come back alive. It was good advice, but incomplete. Maya did not just want to come back alive. She wanted to come back successful, with Volkov in custody and the mission accomplished. She wanted to prove that Harrison's faith in her was justified. More than that, she wanted to prove something to herself. That she belonged in this world. That she was not just lucky or a diversity hire, but genuinely skilled and capable. That all those years of being underestimated had made her stronger rather than bitter. As she packed her bags, Maya allowed herself a small smile. They had underestimated her before. Roberts, Patterson, probably half the agency. Soon Volkov would underestimate her too. That would be his last mistake. Prague welcomed Maya with gray skies and cold rain. She arrived at the Grand Hotel Europa under her cover identity as Isabelle Laurent, a French art consultant representing wealthy private collectors. Her wardrobe had been carefully selected, elegant but not flashy, expensive but understated. Everything about Isabelle suggested old money and quiet sophistication. The hotel suite was luxurious. With high ceilings and windows overlooking the Vltava River, Maya swept the rooms for surveillance devices. As soon as the bellhop left, clean, she activated her encrypted communication device and sent a brief message to headquarters confirming her arrival. The auction was scheduled for 2 days away, giving Maya time to establish her presence in Prague's high society circles. Her mission briefing included a list of individuals who moved in the same networks as Volkov. Making the right connections now could mean the difference between getting close to him or being shut out completely. That evening, Maya attended a gallery opening in the Old Town. She wore a black dress with a subtle designer label and carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged in these spaces. The gallery was filled with Prague's elite, wealthy collectors, artists, critics, and the kind of people who attended events to be seen rather than to appreciate art. Maya moved through the crowd with practiced ease, pausing occasionally to examine paintings and sculptures. She was playing a role, but she also genuinely appreciated art. That authenticity made her cover more believable. She felt him before she saw him. A shift in the crowd's energy, a subtle change in the room's dynamics. Maya glanced toward the entrance and saw a tall man in his 40s entering with 2 companions. Dmitry Kozlov. According to intelligence reports, he was one of Volkov's trusted associates and often handled preliminary negotiations for the criminal network. Maya did not approach him directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, she positioned herself near a controversial modern sculpture that was generating heated discussion among several art critics. She joined the conversation, offering insightful commentary that revealed both knowledge and taste. Kozlov noticed. He drifted closer to the group, listening but not participating. Maya felt his attention like a physical touch but did not acknowledge it. She continued her conversation naturally, making a witty observation that caused several people to laugh. When the group dispersed, Kozlov approached. "You have strong opinions about neo-expressionism," he said in accented English. Maya turned, allowing a flicker of polite interest across her face. She responded in flawless Russian, "Only when it's done badly. That piece, unfortunately, is trying too hard to be provocative without saying anything meaningful." Kozlov's eyebrows raised slightly at her use of Russian. "You speak my language well. I speak several languages well. It's necessary in my work." Maya extended her hand. Isabelle Laurent. I consult for private collectors in France and Switzerland. They shook hands, and Kozlov held her gaze a moment longer than strictly professional. Dmitry Kozlov. I also work with collectors, though my clients prefer to remain more anonymous. Maya smiled knowingly. The best collectors usually do. They talked for 20 minutes about art, market trends, and the challenges of acquiring pieces for demanding clients. Maya was careful to reveal just enough to seem knowledgeable and connected, but not so much that she appeared suspicious. She mentioned being in Prague for a special auction, watching Kozlov's reaction carefully. His interest sharpened. The Zerner auction? Perhaps. My client values discretion. Kozlov nodded approvingly. As do mine. Perhaps we'll see each other there. Perhaps. He excused himself shortly after, but Maya noticed him speaking quietly to one of his companions, while glancing in her direction. She had planted the seed. Now she needed to let it grow naturally. Over the next 2 days, Maya continued building her cover. She visited prestigious galleries, met with legitimate art dealers, and made herself visible in the right circles. Each interaction was carefully calculated to reinforce Isabelle Laurent's identity as a well-connected consultant with access to serious money. She also gathered intelligence. Prague was full of information for those who knew how to listen. In cafe conversations and gallery small talk, Maya picked up rumors about the auction, whispers about which criminal organizations would be represented, and speculation about whether Volkov himself might attend. The night before the auction, Maya received an encrypted message from Harrison. Signal intelligence confirms Volkov in Prague. Proceed with extreme caution. Extraction team on standby, but cannot enter auction venue without compromising mission. You're on your own once inside. Maya had expected this, but seeing it confirmed still sent a chill through her. She would be completely alone in a room full of criminals, with no immediate backup available. If something went wrong, she would have to handle it herself. She spent the evening preparing. Her dress for the auction was stunning, deep emerald silk that suggested wealth without being ostentatious. Hidden in the lining was a small tracking device that would activate if she pressed a specific point on the fabric. Sewn into the hem was a thin blade. It's barely noticeable but potentially life-saving in an emergency. Her jewelry was equally functional. The diamond earrings contained miniature recording devices. The bracelet had a concealed GPS tracker. Everything had been designed to look completely normal while serving dual purposes. Maya studied herself in the mirror, watching Isabelle Laurent look back at her. This was more than just wearing different clothes or using a fake name. She had to become this person completely. Her mannerisms, her speech patterns, even the way she thought had to align with who Isabelle was supposed to be. The auction was being held in a private mansion outside Prague city center. Maya arrived by hired car, part of a steady stream of expensive vehicles dropping off guests. Security was heavy, but discreet. Men in dark suits checked invitations and scanned guests with handheld metal detectors disguised as ticket scanners. Maya's invitation had been obtained through a complicated series of intermediaries, each transaction carefully designed to look legitimate while hiding the agency's involvement. The security guard examined it closely before nodding and allowing her to enter. The mansion's interior was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from painted ceilings, and the walls were lined with artwork that belonged in museums. Servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, while well-dressed guests mingled in small groups. Maya accepted a glass of champagne and began her reconnaissance. She identified security positions, noted exit points, and cataloged the faces around her. Many she recognized from intelligence briefings: arms dealers, money launderers, corrupt officials, and various criminal operators from across Europe, but no Volkov. Not yet. She was examining a Renaissance painting when someone spoke beside her. The restoration work is remarkable. You can barely see where the original damage occurred. Maya turned to find Kozlov standing next to her, wearing an impeccably tailored suit and an amused expression. Dmitry, what a pleasant surprise. Is it a surprise? I mentioned I might see you here. You did? Though I wasn't certain you'd remember our brief conversation. Kozlov's smile widened. I remember interesting people, Isabel. And you were quite interesting. They talked as the auction room began to fill. Kozlov introduced her to several other guests, each introduction feeling like a small test. Maya played her role perfectly, demonstrating knowledge, sophistication, and the right amount of discretion about her clients. The auction began promptly at 8. Guests took their seats in rows of velvet chairs facing a small stage where the auctioneer stood. Maya positioned herself near the middle, close enough to observe but not so prominent as to draw excessive attention. The first items were legitimate pieces, paintings, sculptures, rare books. Maya bid on a few, winning one small painting to establish Isabel's credibility as an actual buyer. But everyone in the room knew these items were just the opening act. The real auction would begin later. It was nearly 10 o'clock when the auctioneer announced a brief intermission. Guests rose to stretch, refresh their drinks, and conduct quiet negotiations in corners. Maya was speaking with an Italian collector when she felt it. A change in the room's energy, subtle but unmistakable. Conversations paused for just a heartbeat. Several people glanced toward the entrance. Viktor Volkov had arrived. He was smaller than Maya expected, perhaps 5'9", with the kind of unremarkable features that made him easy to overlook. He wore a gray suit and moved with unhurried confidence. Flanked by 2 bodyguards, who looked like they could crush concrete with their bare hands, Maya did not stare. She glanced once, just long enough to confirm his identity, then returned to her conversation. But every nerve in her body was suddenly alert. After months of preparation, thousands of hours studying his patterns and behaviors, he was finally here. Kozlov appeared at her elbow. "Come, I'd like to introduce you to someone." Maya's heart rate accelerated, but her expression remained pleasantly neutral. Of course. Kozlov guided her through the crowd toward Volkov. As they approached, one of the bodyguards stepped forward, but Volkov waved him back with a small gesture. "Victor, this is Isabelle Laurent. She represents several significant collectors in Western Europe." Volkov's eyes met Maya's, and she felt the full force of his attention. This was a man who had survived in the criminal underworld for decades through paranoia, intelligence, and ruthlessness. He was evaluating her, searching for any sign of deception or danger. Maya smiled politely and extended her hand. "Mr. Volkov, Dmitri speaks very highly of your organization." Volkov's handshake was brief and dry. "Does he? Dmitri is too generous." "And please, call me Victor. We're all friends here." His English was nearly perfect, with just a trace of accent. Maya noticed his eyes never stopped moving, constantly scanning the room, even while focused on her. "I hope you're finding the auction interesting," Volkov continued. "Though I suspect the early items are not quite what you came to see." Maya allowed a knowing smile. "The early items are lovely, but you're correct. My clients have more specific interests, as do mine. Perhaps we should talk after the auction concludes. I'm always interested in connecting serious buyers with quality merchandise." It was an opening, exactly what Maya needed, but she knew better than to seem too eager. "Perhaps, though I'm quite selective about partnerships. My clients value discretion and reliability above all else." Volkov's expression showed something that might have been approval, as they should. "We'll speak later." He moved away, and Maya felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. First contact established. She had passed his initial evaluation, at least enough to warrant further conversation. But she also knew the real test was still coming. The auction resumed with very different items. Documents, data drives, equipment that had obvious military applications. The bidding was fierce and conducted through subtle signals rather than raised paddles. Maya bid on several items, winning one encrypted communication device that Isabel's fictional clients would supposedly want. Throughout the auction, she felt Volkov's attention periodically returning to her. He was still evaluating, still deciding if she was worth trusting. Maya maintained her cover perfectly, showing interest in the right items, asking knowledgeable questions, and demonstrating that Isabelle Laurent knew exactly what she was doing. As midnight approached and the auction concluded, Kozlov reappeared. "Victor would like to speak with you privately. Are you interested?" This was the moment. Maya knew that accepting could lead to a breakthrough or a trap. Declining might blow the entire operation. She thought about Robert's advice to come back alive, about Harrison's faith in her abilities, about all the people who had doubted she could pull this off. Then she thought about the 2 agents who had died trying to capture Volkov, about the victims of his criminal network, about why she had joined the agency in the first place. Maya met Kozlov's eyes and smiled. "I'm very interested." Kozlov led Maya through a side door into a private wing of the mansion. The change in atmosphere was immediate. Fewer people, heavier security, and an undercurrent of danger that made her instincts scream warnings. One of Volkov's bodyguards walked behind them, close enough to intervene if necessary. They entered a library lined with leather-bound books that probably cost more than most people earned in a year. Volkov sat in a wing-back chair near a fireplace, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He gestured toward a chair across from him. "Sit. Would you like a drink?" Maya settled into the chair with practiced grace. "Cognac, if you have it." Volkov poured the drink himself, an interesting choice that suggested either confidence or a test of some kind. He handed her the glass and returned to his seat, studying her with those cold, calculating eyes. "Dmitri tells me you've been in Prague for 3 days. You've made quite an impression in certain circles. I believe in being thorough. My clients don't tolerate mistakes. Neither do mine." Volkov swirled his drink slowly. "Tell me about your clients. Who exactly are you representing?" This was dangerous territory. Reveal too much, and Volkov could verify details and find inconsistencies. Reveal too little, and he would become suspicious. Maya took a sip of cognac before responding. "I represent a consortium of collectors based primarily in Geneva and Paris. Old money. Families who have been accumulating assets for generations. They prefer anonymity because their public images don't align with some of their private interests. Wealthy hypocrites. In other words, wealthy pragmatists. They understand that the world rarely operates according to official rules." Volkov smiled slightly, a realistic perspective. "And what brings these pragmatists to my auction? They're interested in diversifying their holdings. Art and antiques are beautiful, but information and technology have become equally valuable. Perhaps more so. You're talking about the encrypted systems we offer." Maya nodded. "Among other things, my clients are particularly interested in secure communication channels that can't be monitored by government agencies." This was true enough. The intelligence agency had created a credible cover by having Isabelle Laurent represent fictional clients with realistic needs that would interest someone like Volkov. The key was making those needs specific enough to be believable without being so detailed that they could be easily investigated. Volkov leaned back, clearly pleased by her directness. "I appreciate someone who doesn't waste time with pretense. However, you must understand that I'm naturally cautious. New business relationships require trust, and trust takes time to build. Of course, I wouldn't expect otherwise. What I propose is a trial arrangement. Small transaction, limited risk for both parties. If that goes well, we can discuss larger collaborations." Volkov would never commit to a major deal with someone he had just met, regardless of how impressive they appeared. She needed to accept this offer, while also positioning herself for deeper access to his organization. "That sounds reasonable, though I should mention that my clients are impatient. If they don't see results quickly, they'll look elsewhere." It was a calculated risk, pushing back slightly to avoid seeming too eager. Volkov studied her for a long moment, and Maya forced herself to remain calm under his scrutiny. Finally, he nodded. 3 days. I'll arrange a demonstration of our communication systems. If your clients are satisfied, we'll discuss next steps." "Excellent." Volkov stood, indicating the meeting was over. "Kozlov will provide you with details tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Isabel." Maya rose and shook his hand again, maintaining eye contact just long enough to show confidence without challenging him. As she left the library with Kozlov, she felt the weight of what had just happened. She was in. Not deeply, not yet, but she had taken the crucial first step. The next morning, Maya transmitted an encrypted report to headquarters. She described the meeting with Volkov, his cautious approach, and the proposed trial arrangement. Harrison's response was brief but clear. Proceed carefully and maintain cover at all costs. Kozlov contacted her that
afternoon
with details about the demonstration. It would take place in an industrial building on Prague's outskirts, a location that made Maya's training kick into high alert. Enclosed spaces, limited exits, and complete control by Volkov's organization. If this was a trap, she would have very few options. She prepared carefully, ensuring her hidden tracking device was fully functional and her emergency extraction signal was ready to activate. She also spent 2 hours studying maps of the area, identifying potential escape routes if everything went wrong. The building was exactly as unpromising as Maya had imagined. Gray concrete, minimal windows, and surrounded by a chain-link fence. 2 guards stood at the entrance, and security cameras covered every approach. Maya arrived in her hired car, projecting the same confident sophistication that Isabelle Laurent always displayed. Inside, the building had been converted into a surprisingly sophisticated demonstration space. Computer systems lined one wall, and a conference table occupied the center of the room. Kozlov was there with 2 technicians who looked nervous in the presence of Volkov, who stood near the computers examining a tablet. Isabelle, welcome, Volkov gestured toward the setup. I thought a practical demonstration would be more convincing than simple descriptions. For the next hour, the technicians walked Maya through the encryption systems, showing how the communication channels worked and explaining the security features that made them nearly impossible to intercept. Maya asked intelligent questions that Isabelle Laurent would ask, demonstrating enough technical knowledge to be credible, without revealing the depth of understanding that might suggest intelligence training. The demonstration was impressive. These systems represented serious technology, the kind that law enforcement agencies would desperately want to access. Maya's hidden recording devices were capturing everything, intelligence that would be invaluable for future operations. As the demonstration concluded, Volkov dismissed the technicians and poured himself a drink from a bottle on the conference table. What do you think? I think my clients will be very interested. The security architecture is more sophisticated than anything I've seen from commercial providers. It's because commercial providers have to follow regulations. We don't. Volkov studied her with that penetrating gaze. You handled the technical discussion well. Most art consultants would be lost in those details. Asha felt a spike of adrenaline. This was a test, possibly a trap. I make it my business to understand what I'm selling. My clients pay me to be knowledgeable, not just pretty. Volkov smiled. Smart and beautiful. A dangerous combination. It was a compliment wrapped in threat. Typical of how men like Volkov interacted with women, they were simultaneously attracted to and suspicious of. Maya navigated it carefully, acknowledging the comment without encouraging it. Dangerous only to competitors. For partners, it's quite advantageous. Kozlov, who had been quiet during most of the demonstration, spoke up. Victor, if Isabelle's clients are satisfied, we should discuss the terms of a larger arrangement. Volkov nodded slowly. Agreed, but first I have a question for you, Isabelle. The air in the room seemed to change. Maya felt her muscles tense imperceptibly, preparing for whatever was coming. I've done business in this world for many years. I've learned to be cautious, perhaps overly so. Before we proceed further, I need you to answer something honestly. Of course. Why did you really come to Prague? The question hung in the air like a blade. Maya's mind raced through options. This could be genuine curiosity, or it could mean Volkov had discovered something about her cover. The wrong answer could end the mission, or worse. She met his eyes directly. I came because my clients sent me. They heard about your reputation through mutual contacts and wanted someone they trusted to evaluate whether you lived up to that reputation. And do I? So far, yes. You're careful, professional, and you clearly understand operational security. Those are exactly the qualities my clients value. Volkov continued watching her, and Maya could almost see him weighing her words, searching for deception. Finally, he seemed to reach a conclusion. Good, because I've been watching you, Isabelle. Since you arrived in Prague, your movements, your interactions, your behavior, everything has been consistent with who you claim to be. But consistency can also indicate careful preparation. Maya felt ice in her veins but kept her expression neutral. Are you accusing me of something? I'm being cautious. It's kept me alive and free when many others are dead or in prison. Volkov set down his glass. I had someone check your background. Your gallery contacts in Paris, your banking records, even the hotel where you supposedly stayed in Geneva last month. Everything checks out. Almost too perfectly. This was exactly what the agency had spent months preparing for. Creating a backstory so detailed and verifiable that even paranoid criminals would find it convincing. But clearly, Volkov was still not entirely satisfied. Maya allowed a flash of irritation to cross her face. If you don't trust me, Victor, then we're wasting each other's time. My clients value discretion and professionalism. They don't appreciate having their representative investigated like a common criminal. It was a bold move, pushing back against his suspicion. But Isabelle Laurent would be offended by this kind of scrutiny. Showing fear or excessive accommodation would be out of character. Volkov's expression shifted slightly, showing something that might have been respect. You're right. My apologies. Old habits and all that. Understandable, given your line of work. But if we're going to do business, there needs to be a baseline of trust. Agreed. Volkov extended his hand. Let's start over. I believe you are who you say you are, and I'm interested in working with your clients. Maya shook his hand, feeling the tension in the room ease slightly. She had passed the test, though barely. Volkov was still suspicious, still watching, but he had decided to move forward. They spent the next hour discussing terms for a larger transaction. Volkov proposed a deal involving multiple encrypted communication systems and access to secure data storage. Worth several €100,000. Maya negotiated carefully, showing enough interest to keep him engaged while maintaining Isabelle's professional caution. As the meeting concluded, Volkov made an unexpected offer. I'm hosting a small gathering tomorrow evening at my villa outside the city. Just a few trusted associates and potential partners. I'd like you to attend. This was bigger than Maya had hoped for. Access to Volkov's personal residence would provide intelligence opportunities far beyond what they had expected at this stage. I'd be delighted, Maya said. Kozlov walked her to her car, and Maya noticed he seemed more relaxed than before. Victor doesn't usually invite new contacts to his home. Consider it a significant compliment.
I do.
Though I'm curious why he's extending trust so quickly. Kozlov smiled. He's not trusting you completely, but he's interested enough to take a calculated risk. Plus, he finds you intriguing. Victor appreciates intelligence in all its forms. As Maya drove back toward the city, she processed everything that had happened. The demonstration had been successful, providing valuable intelligence about Volkov's systems. But the real prize was the invitation to his villa. If she could get inside his personal space, she might find evidence or intelligence that could finally bring him down. She also knew the danger was escalating. Volkov's suspicions had not been entirely satisfied. He was watching her, testing her, looking for any crack in her cover story. One mistake, one inconsistent detail, and everything could fall apart. That evening, Maya sent another encrypted report to headquarters. Harrison's response came quickly. Outstanding progress. Villa access is primary objective, but his suspicions are concerning. Trust your instincts and remember your training. Extraction team remains on standby. Maya spent the rest of the night preparing. The villa visit would be different from the auction or the demonstration. It would be personal, intimate, and potentially much more dangerous. Volkov would be on his home territory, surrounded by his most trusted people, with complete control of the environment. She reviewed everything she knew about him, looking for angles she could exploit. Volkov was brilliant and ruthless, but he was also human. He had pride, ego, and desires. The fact that he found Isabelle intriguing was both an opportunity and a danger. Maya understood that she was walking a knife's edge. Every interaction with Volkov required perfect balance. Too distant, and he would lose interest. Too engaging, and he might want things that would compromise the mission or her cover. As she finally lay down to sleep, Maya thought about Robert's words again. Come back alive. It was good advice, but increasingly difficult to follow. She was deep in Volkov's world now, far past the point where simple extraction would be possible without consequences. The mission was entering its most critical phase. Tomorrow at the villa, she would need to be perfect. Any hesitation, any mistake, any moment where Isabelle Laurent slipped and Maya Chen showed through could be fatal. She had told them they were making a mistake by underestimating her. Now she had to prove it. The villa sat on a hillside overlooking Prague, surrounded by manicured gardens and protected by security that would intimidate a military installation. Maya counted at least 6 guards visible from the entrance, and she knew there would be many more out of sight. Cameras covered every angle. The perimeter fence was clearly electrified. She arrived exactly on time, neither early nor late. Punctuality was part of Isabelle Laurent's character. Professional, reliable, respectful of others' time. A valet took her car, and a security guard checked her invitation before allowing her to proceed up the stone walkway. The villa itself was stunning. 18th century architecture beautifully restored, with modern touches that suggested wealth and taste. Through the windows, Maya could see perhaps 20 guests mingling in an elegant sitting room. This was indeed a small gathering by billionaire standards, which meant everyone here was important to Volkov's organization. Kozlov met her at the door, wearing a casual elegance that somehow made him look even more dangerous than his usual business attire. "Isabelle, welcome. Victor is looking forward to continuing your conversation. As am I. This is a beautiful property. Victor believes in enjoying the fruits of his labor. Come, let me introduce you to some of the other guests." The next hour was a masterclass in criminal networking. Kozlov introduced Maya to arms dealers, corrupt politicians, financial criminals, and various operatives whose wealth came from enterprises that existed in the shadows of legitimate society. Each introduction was a delicate dance where Maya had to project confidence and capability. While gathering as much intelligence as possible, she recognized several faces from agency briefings. There was Margareta Novak, a Czech official who had been suspected of selling state secrets. Next to her stood Antonio Ricci, an Italian who ran money laundering operations through a chain of restaurants. In the corner, a Russian oligarch named Yuri Petrov discussed something intensely with a Chinese businessman Maya didn't recognize. Every person in this room represented a target that intelligence agencies had been pursuing for years. The information Maya was gathering, the connections she was documenting, was worth more than any single arrest. But she could not afford to be distracted by the bigger picture. Her focus had to remain on Volkov. He appeared an hour into the evening, descending a curved staircase with the kind of relaxed confidence that came from being completely in control of his environment. He had changed from his business attire into something more casual, but no less expensive. Several guests immediately moved toward him, but his eyes found Maya across the room. "Isabelle, I hope Dmitri has been taking good care of you." "Excellent care. You have impressive associates. I surround myself with capable people. It's essential in our line of work." Volkov gestured toward a pair of French doors leading to a terrace. "Would you join me outside? The view is quite spectacular at sunset." Maya followed him onto the terrace, aware that several security guards had positioned themselves discreetly nearby. The view was indeed breathtaking, with Prague spreading out below them and the dying sun painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Volkov leaned against the stone railing, his posture deceptively relaxed. "I wanted to speak with you privately. There's something I've been considering since our meeting yesterday. You're different from the usual brokers and consultants who seek my services. You have education, sophistication, real intelligence. It made me wonder why someone like you works in this world rather than legitimate art consulting." It was another test, this one more personal and potentially more revealing. Maya had prepared for this question, knowing that her cover story would eventually be scrutinized. She looked out at the city, letting a moment of silence pass before responding. "The legitimate art world is full of people pretending to be sophisticated while playing political games. I grew tired of it. At least in this world, people are honest about what they want. Money and power. Exactly. No pretense, no false morality. Just transactions between rational adults." Volkov seemed to appreciate this answer. A refreshingly cynical perspective. "Though I detect something else as well. Perhaps a touch of anger at the legitimate world for some past disappointment? Maya allowed a slight vulnerability to show a calculated risk that might deepen their connection. My family lost everything during the financial crisis. Legitimate banks, legitimate investments, all managed by people with impressive credentials and expensive suits. They destroyed lives legally and faced no consequences. That taught me an important lesson about where the real criminals operate. It was a lie, carefully constructed to explain Isabelle Laurent's willingness to work with people like Volkov. But it was also close enough to real experiences Maya had witnessed to give it emotional authenticity. Volkov nodded slowly. The legitimate world's hypocrisy is remarkable. They condemn us while operating on a much larger scale. He turned to face her directly. I appreciate your honesty, Isabelle. It makes me more comfortable with what I'm about to propose.
Which is?
I'm interested in establishing a long-term arrangement with your clients. Not just occasional transactions, but ongoing partnership. However, that requires a deeper level of trust and cooperation. This was the opening Maya had been working toward, but she knew she had to be careful not to seem too eager. What specifically are you proposing? Access to my full catalog of services. Encrypted communications, secure data storage, document forgery, specialized transportation, even personal security if needed. In exchange, I want your clients to commit to exclusive partnership and regular minimum purchases. The offer was huge. Exactly the kind of deep integration that would give Maya extensive access to Volkov's operations. But accepting too quickly would be suspicious. That's a significant commitment. I'd need to discuss it with my clients and review all the terms in detail. Of course. Take a few days. But I should mention that I'm only making this offer because I believe you're someone I can work with long term. That's not something I say often. There was something in his tone that made Maya's instincts flare. This was not just a business proposition. Volkov was interested in her personally, and that added a dangerous complication. Before she could respond, Kozlov appeared at the terrace door. Victor, I apologize for interrupting, but there's an urgent call from Moscow. Volkov's expression tightened slightly. I'll be right there, he turned back to Maya. Please enjoy the party. We'll talk more later. As Volkov left, Maya took the opportunity to move through the villa more freely. She excused herself to find a restroom, using the opportunity to observe the layout and security measures. The first floor was public space, but she noticed stairs leading to a second floor that was clearly off-limits based on the guard positioned at the bottom. In a hallway near the bathroom, Maya spotted something interesting. A door slightly ajar, revealing what looked like a study or office. She glanced around quickly. No guards immediately visible, though she knew cameras were everywhere. She should not take the risk. The smart move was to return to the party, continue building rapport with Volkov, and wait for a better opportunity. But intelligence officers knew that sometimes the best opportunities were the ones that appeared unexpectedly and might never come again. Maya made a quick decision. She stepped into the restroom first, spending exactly the amount of time someone actually using it would spend. Then, emerging, she paused near the study door, as if admiring a painting on the wall. In reality, she was using the reflection in the painting's glass to check for observers. The hallway was clear for the moment. Maya slipped into the study, closing the door almost completely behind her, but leaving it slightly ajar, so it would appear the same as before. The study was masculine and elegant, with leather chairs and shelves full of books. But what caught Maya's attention was the desk, where several documents lay scattered. She moved quickly to the desk, her hands pulling out the miniature camera concealed in her bracelet. The documents were in Russian and Czech, discussing shipping routes and financial transactions. Maya photographed them quickly, knowing she had perhaps 60 seconds before someone might notice her absence or a security guard might patrol past. One document in particular made her heart race. It was a list of names, with dates and amounts next to them. She recognized several as government officials from different European countries. This was evidence of bribery, corruption, and illegal influence on a massive scale. She photographed everything she could reach, working with practiced speed. Then she heard voices in the hallway getting closer. Maya quickly returned the documents to their positions and moved away from the desk. The door opened, and a security guard looked in. His eyes narrowed when he saw her. "I'm sorry," Maya said immediately, in perfect check. "I was looking for the restroom and got turned around. These hallways all look similar." The guard studied her suspiciously. Maya knew this moment was critical. If he decided to report this to Volkov, her cover could be blown. She needed to give him a reason not to. She smiled sheepishly and pulled out a business card. "I'm Isabelle Laurent, one of Victor's guests. I apologize for wandering. Could you direct me back to the party?" The guard relaxed slightly at the mention of Volkov's first name, suggesting she was indeed an invited guest rather than an intruder. He gestured toward the hallway. "This way, please." As he escorted her back to the main room, Maya's mind raced. Had she been seen on camera? Would the guard mention this to Volkov anyway? Had she just destroyed the entire operation for a few photographs? She returned to the party, accepting a fresh glass of champagne and rejoining conversations as if nothing had happened. But inside, her nervous system was on high alert, waiting for any sign that her breach had been discovered. Volkov returned 20 minutes later, looking slightly stressed from whatever the Moscow call had involved. He spotted Maya talking with Margareta Novak and excused himself from his current conversation to join them. "I apologize for abandoning you," he said to Maya. "Business never sleeps, unfortunately. I understand completely. Margareta has been keeping me entertained with stories about Czech architecture." They talked for another hour as the party continued. Maya could not detect any sign that Volkov knew about her visit to his study. Either the guard had not reported it, or Volkov was choosing to wait and see what she would do. As the evening drew to a close and guests began departing, Volkov walked Maya to the door personally. "Think about my proposal. I believe we could have a very profitable relationship." "I will. Thank you for a lovely evening. The pleasure was mine." He took her hand, holding it perhaps a moment longer than necessary. "I hope to see you again very soon." Maya drove away from the villa with her heart still racing. She had gathered incredible intelligence, far more than she had expected at this stage. But she had also taken a huge risk that might have compromised everything. Back at her hotel, she immediately began transmitting the photographed documents to headquarters through the encrypted system. Harrison's response came within minutes. "Intelligence is extraordinary. Confirms corruption network suspected for years. However, security footage concern is significant. Maintain cover and await instructions." Maya understood what he was not saying directly. If Volkov had seen her in his study on security footage, she was in immediate danger. The smart move would be to extract now, while she still could. But that would mean abandoning the mission before capturing Volkov himself. She spent a sleepless night waiting for Harrison's decision. When his message finally came at dawn, it was not what she expected. "We've analyzed the situation. If Volkov saw footage, he would have acted already. Continue mission, but be prepared for immediate extraction if situation changes." Maya showered and prepared for another day as Isabelle Laurent. She was checking her appearance in the mirror when her phone rang. It was Kozlov. "Good morning, Isabelle. I hope you enjoyed last night." "Very much." "Please thank Victor again for his hospitality." "I will. Actually, that's why I'm calling. Victor would like to meet with you this afternoon to discuss your response to his proposal. Are you available?" This was it. The moment where everything would either come together or fall apart completely. Maya took a breath before responding. "Of course. Where should I meet him?" "The same industrial building as before. 2:00. After Kozlov hung up, Maya sat on the edge of her bed, thinking. This meeting could be legitimate business discussion, or it could be a trap. Volkov might genuinely want to hear her response to his partnership proposal, or he might have discovered her true identity and was luring her to a controlled location. She had no way to know for certain. But she had not come this far to back down now. Maya spent the morning preparing. She sent a detailed message to headquarters outlining the situation and her assessment. She checked all her emergency equipment and confirmed the extraction team's positions. She even recorded a message to her family just in case, though she hoped it would never need to be sent. At 1:30 she left the hotel, The drive to the industrial building took 20 minutes, giving Maya time to center herself mentally. She thought about her training, her preparation, and all the reasons she had joined the intelligence service in the first place. She arrived at 2 o'clock exactly. The guards at the entrance checked her invitation and allowed her inside. The building looked the same as before, but Maya noticed additional security presence. More guards, more cameras, more control. Volkov was waiting in the conference room, alone except for 2 bodyguards who stood near the exits. His expression was unreadable. Isabel, thank you for coming, of course. I've been thinking about your proposal. Volkov gestured toward a chair. Please, sit. Would you like something to drink? No, thank you. They sat across from each other, and Maya felt the weight of his attention like a physical presence. This was the moment where months of preparation would be tested. Volkov leaned back in his chair, studying her with those cold eyes. Then he smiled, but it was not a warm expression. Before we discuss business, I have something to show you. He pulled out a tablet and turned it toward Maya. On the screen was security footage from his villa, footage of her entering his study, footage of her photographing his documents. Maya felt ice flood through her veins, but she kept her expression neutral. Every training scenario had prepared her for this moment. Stay calm. Think clearly. Find the angle. That's an interesting video, she said calmly. Though I'm curious why you're showing it to me. Volkov's smile widened, showing teeth. Because I want to know who you really are, Agent Chen. And what exactly you thought you were going to accomplish here. The sound of her real name and his voice felt like a blade cutting through all her carefully constructed lies. But Maya had one advantage that Volkov did not know about. She had been trained for exactly this scenario, and she had prepared something that even Harrison did not know about. She met Volkov's eyes without flinching, and when she spoke, her voice was absolutely steady. You're right. I'm not Isabelle Laurent. But I'm also not who you think I am. And if you're smart, Victor, you'll listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Outside the building, the extraction team waited for Maya's emergency signal. Inside, surrounded by Volkov's guards, and with her cover completely blown, Maya began the most important negotiation of her life.